does your neighbor look like? Does your neighbor look like McKenna?
Yes.
Does it look like Mr. Whirling? Does it look like Ari? Does it look like Jace? Does it look like Sarah?
Yes.
So our neighbor is who? Everyone. Not the guy living next door, you don't want to say that. But it's everyone in the world is our neighbor. Is our neighbor. God created them all. And so that is our neighbor. Question 60. How do we fear and love God in keeping the fifth commandment? I want you to write, looking at question 60, write down the 4 things that we do by not harming our neighbor, and the 3 things that we do looking after our neighbor. And it's on page 85 and 86. All right, let's look for letter A on not harming your neighbor, our neighbor. Murder, taking someone's life. So without just cause. What was letter B? So first, we don't physically murder someone. The second one is using our mouth to kill somebody. You know, what words come out of our mouth that can hurt them. And then letter C, if someone needs our help, we should help them. If we see that, we should help them. And then letter D, what? Yes, heartbreak, anger, hatred in our hearts against our neighbor. So we have to, check that too, making sure that we make sure that doesn't happen. And then on the positive, what are some things that we should be doing? Yeah, coming and helping our neighbor who's in need. And remember, who's our neighbor? Everybody, whoever we come in contact with. Letter B. Yeah, speak in a way that helps and defends our neighbor, so that our words are encouragement, comfort, helping, things like that. And then letter C, treating our neighbor with kindness and compassion. That we see if they need help, that we want to help them, and that we are there, because usually that God has sent us to that to be Him, His hands, His feet, His voice, whatever, to help that person. Now there are times when we are helped and God sends those people in our lives, which we're very thankful for. Now sometimes God sends us to do that for others as well. Remember, our neighbor is God's gift to us, and that we are God's gift to them as well. Going back to this concept of gift and understanding that as well. On page 28, and the rest of the catechism, and I'm going to quickly go through the things it mentions in the catechism. And what it says here, that you are to pick one of the topics there and do a little called sleuthing, kind of do some research on that. But all these things are in the catechism that we remember in dealing with issues in our society. One of the big ones that we deal with in our culture that we say is wrong is abortion. So we believe that life begins at conception, that life begins there, and that every life, even in the womb, is a precious gift of God. And so we must stand up for that, and for that person who cannot speak for themselves, that neighbor who cannot speak for themselves. So that's why we as the Lutheran Church Missouri Synod take a very strong stand on being pro-life, all the way beginning with conception, and saying that those are all God's people. And then on the other end of life, euthanasia. There are some who say that we should take a person's life when and will we want to. Well, we believe that that person is God's gift as well, and God in His time will take that person. Now, I know in the medical community, they know when we do things to prolong one's life, and they know when we're doing things to prolong one's death. Because the medical community can only go so far. They can keep some person on a respirator for years, but they're only doing is prolonging their death. So they try to do their best in prolonging life, in trying to keep a person alive. But there does come that point when you can't do any more. But there's a difference between not being able to do any more, but helping the process along. And God calls us to realize that these are all God's gift as well. So we have these both ends of the spectrum as well. What about capital punishment? We as a church body believe in capital punishment. Now, we say the government has a right, if need be, to end one's life because of whatever thing that they did. Now, the question is, for us, isn't whether or not the government has a right to do that. Our question is, what merits that? What thing that a person has done merits for them to have their life ended? I think that's up for discussion. But in the Scripture, God gives the government that authority to have that right, if need be, to do that. God also gives the government authority to fight in just wars. That we fight somebody, and the government gives us the right to kill somebody. If someone's shooting at me in a war, the government has given me a right, and God says that's okay. So there are those things that we have to keep in mind as well. There's a whole bunch of other stuff in the catechism that I want you to read through during this week. Remember, that we have those are all lined up in the news and notes. They're also on our webpage. If you look under Review the Catechism, that bottom right-hand one on our webpage, the bottom corner there of that page, read through this. This is important stuff. One of the things that I want you to use your catechism for is that maybe later on in life, you use this as a manual, a handbook. That if you have a question and you don't remember what it is, that you have your catechism, and chances are that question will be answered in your catechism. And things like that. As you get older, when you go to high school, when you go to college, I want you to have your catechism there and say, what do we believe about when life begins? What do we believe about end-of-life issues? What do we believe about this, that, and the other thing? Your catechism is a wonderful resource that you can use, and that you have that. Now, if the catechism doesn't have an answer, I want you, feel free to call Pastor Stecker. And he'll answer any question you have. All right? And Pastor Shoemaker. Well, you can call me too. But, you know, and things like that. I know it doesn't have all the answers, but it has the majority of the answers to the questions that we are being asked today. So please keep that in mind. It's your manual. It's your handbook. I want you to treat it that way as well. All right. It's time to go. So let's close with the Lord's Prayer. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come. Thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen.